Welcome back to Energy 101. Today we have Colton Dudley. He is all expert matter in seismic, a subject that is huge in the oil and gas industry that we have yet to cover. So as he has had so much experience in his life, currently a consultant, let's see what he knows and can teach us today. Take it away.
Appreciate you guys reaching out to me and doing this. This is my first podcast I've ever done, so this is pretty
we
fun.
love it.
I think it's taken about a while to get down here, so I'm sorry it took so long, but I've just been busy.
The whole 150 miles from Austin.
Thank you for making the trip.
Well, gotta take care of the clients. That's for sure. They're number one priority. So
well, hopefully this will get you more.
Yeah, I hope so. That'd be great. Doing fine right now, but this is fun. I'm looking forward to this. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me sum up this episode in like one sentence. Seismic is basically like doing an ultrasound on the ground, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
That's the easiest way to do it.
Cool.
We're just, instead of looking for broken bones, we're looking for things that hold oil and gas or any other resource in the ground.
Right.
That might be it. Seismic data, it's like a Swiss Army knife for any resource business. If you're looking for oil, if you're looking for gas, you're looking to put CO2 in the ground, lithium, whatever, it's a good Swiss Army knife tool to really find whatever structure, geology, or what have you in the ground to help you best extract or put in resource, whatever way your business is, whatever resource your company's going after.
Right. So
how,
okay. It's been a while. You're so hot to jump on.
But yeah, it's just like an MRI. It's literally the same thing.
Love analogies on the show.
I know, me too. I would say, is it like a baby? Finding the baby.
Yeah.
No, I was actually going to just say, like, how does it work?
When you mean how does it work, you mean how do we go get it or how do we use it? All of it?
All of it.
Oh, how long is this timer for? No,
exactly.
So the way that it's collected, that I've always described it to people, actually the way that you collect it and the way that it's useful is that I always describe it as trying to find a stud on the wall. So everyone knows that a stud on the wall, for the most part, depends on what house you're in. It might be 16 inches, might be 24 inches, but it's on that wall somewhere. So instead of taking a nail, which would be like a well, and literally just hitting it on the wall everywhere, a really good way to find a stud, at least back then, is you go tap on it with your hand. There's areas on the wall that sound really hollow, and there's areas that sound really hard. Well, if you go on the wall, it's a lot cheaper to go and tap your wall with your hand instead of just hitting 100 nails in the wall. And that's what they used to do to a degree, very simplistically. So instead of that, you can have someone go out there and tap your hand all over the wall, or contract or whatnot. And when they find the stud, you're only going to take, hopefully, like 2 nails to find it, right? Well, that's really the value of the seismic data, is that all the studs in the wall are the structures, the geology, or whatever it is that you're trying to find. And actually, it's in oil and gas, you're looking for fluids. You're not necessarily looking for the rock. You want to find a rock that has the fluids, but you're looking for the fluids at the end of the day. When you go out and do a seismic survey and you're using, seismic waves to look at the subsurface, it helps you find the studs a lot faster. Helps you find the anticlines, helps you find the fault traps, helps you find the reservoirs you can pump CO2 into, or whatever resource you're dealing with. That's really the value behind it. It's a lot cheaper than shooting seismic data or going and get it from someone than just drilling, $1 million well, or heck, a well that's in the Gulf Coast that's, $100 million. It's a lot cheaper to pay a guy like me to help you de-risk it before you go out there and just spend a ton of money. And that's how it used to be before, like the 1960s. That's really how it used to be. They used to just go out and poke holes and hope for the best. It used to be, there's still wildcatting nowadays, but that was like true wildcatting, I guess, for a lack of a better way to describe it.
So is most of the data collected now and you're just reading it for people?
It depends on the project. I've been on a lot of people call me to do, because they just don't know what's out there. I've worked for a lot of people that they don't know the cost of the data. They don't know if it's been shot. They don't know if it's new. They don't know if it's old. They don't know if they can get a better price for it. It really depends on the company. I worked for a company that we went as far as went into his shed. I don't know if I call it a shed, but like his building, because he knew he had a 3D in there. in a flash drive. Well, it was a big hard drive. But he's like, I think it's in there. I went, there's a 3D in there? You don't even know it's in there? And he goes, no one else has this 3D. And as far as I know, it's in his shed. Well, it's not in his shed because we went and looked. But
he lost it?
Yes.
So you just have to redo it? Or what is a 3D? What is a 3D?
Oh, a 3. So, right. Let me step back a little bit. So, like I said, before like the 1960s, they just used to go drill oil wells all over the place. And now the geos had an idea of where stuff was, but they really needed to get the lateral and the vertical variability or resolution in the subsurface to really look to know where to go. So the first data that was ever collected was 2D seismic. And what 2D seismic is, it's just like a one-dimensional picture of the subsurface. So if I came out here right now and you know what a projector screen is? If you pull the projector screen up from the subsurface, that's what like a 2D line is. You could literally pull it up and look and see what it looks like. Yeah. I don't know if you guys could pull up what seismic data looks like.
Why don't we have charts right now, Jacob?
I was going to...
I wish I could describe what it looks like, but it's probably a lot better to just pull up a picture. I know you think it's going to look very sexy at the end.
I don't really understand what is that telling you?
Let me see real quick.
It looks like I could have just gone and drawn some lines.
When you look at seismic data Excel coming from your guys' standpoint, it does not look like this beautiful, picture of the Grand Canyon. I wish it did. It would be a lot more fun. But the way that seismic data is typically portrayed when you interpret it, that is what it looks like. And honestly, that's a big reason why we get paid for what we do.
Right.
Is that it does take a talented skill set over lots of experience and time to look at that stuff and give companies an idea of, where oil and gas is. So a great example of that data right there. Do you see in the data where it's peaked like that? Just very generally, it's like that.
Yeah.
Oil and gas reservoirs still today, actually it's still very common today. That's only a section of that, right? So you're looking at it in 1 degree. That is essentially an upside down bowl. So if we had a bowl, this is your bowl.
Hell yeah.
This is an upside down bowl, right? So that picture right there, if you took a section in between this, if you cut this in half, that's what you're looking at.
Okay.
Right? But let's say that section, and we're still in like the description of like what 2D seismic data is. Let's say that cut through there, that cross section through there is right here.
Mm-hmm.
That is the only place that you know where that hump is, right? So you're looking at that. You don't know if you're on the top of the hump. You don't know if you're on this side of the hump. You don't know if you're on this side of the hump. 2D seismic data, you really only know a 2D picture of what really is a 3D thing in the subsurface.
Gotcha.
You don't know.
Yeah.
So originally in like the 1960s when they did data, that's literally what your deliverable would be from a company, is you'd get one line. Now down the road, they said, well, let's not just do one line, let's do another line. Let's do another line, let's do another line. And so if you shot a line here, this is the highest part. You shot a line here, this is the lowest part. You go over here, this is the lowest part. Oil and gas and most things in the world are trying to move to low pressure. If you're down there at 20,000 feet, it's trying to come out because it's so much pressure down there. So everything is going to migrate to the very top. So you want to drill a well right in the top. And to a degree, that's where 3D seismic, for lack of a better way to get to it, came about. They said, well, we're shooting all these 2D lines. Why don't we just do a ton of them and slam them together so we know right where that point's at? And so the difference between 2D and 3D is 2D is just a bunch of pieces of the puzzle, whereas 3D, you get to see the whole dang thing.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, you get a much better idea of the size of the feature, whatever you're looking at, the risk, the amount of oil and gas, or whatever it is down there that you're looking for. So that's the difference between 2D and 3D, if that's, hopefully that makes some sense.
Yeah. So how does the whole process work from like gathering the data? Who gathers the data? How do they gather it? And then when you interpret it, is there like a program for that? Like you use, And is there like technology now where like AI can do all this?
Save that. Let's keep building. We're building a timeline perfectly. So let's actually put ourselves like on the ground and talk about like basically what you said, and then we'll get to
So how is the data collected? Like how are they going and knocking on the ground?
Yeah, so and that's like literally what they do is they have these giant trucks. They're called, the fun way to say is they're called thumper trucks.
Thumper?
Yeah, thumper trucks because they thump on the ground. But when you go out and see these trucks, they'll have like 2, 3, 4 of them out there, at least in a lot of land acquisition stuff that I've done. They'll have these trucks, and this is just land data. It's completely different. Well, it's different offshore, but they'll have these trucks that drive around and they have this giant plate on them. And you go out there and they set it on the ground and it just goes, and it just sends seismic waves into the ground. And those waves go down into the ground. They bounce off the rocks wherever you have acoustic changes in the rocks. And when they hit that interface and the difference between two rocks, that wave comes back up and it's recorded in a geophone. It's the same thing as when you hit your hand on the wall and you're listening for that hollow sound or you're listening for that hard sound. It's to a degree, it's the exact same concept. You are listening for that rock that is most likely going to hold the resource that you're looking for. It's the exact same concept. But that's what they do is they send these trucks out there, they slam into the ground, those waves go down, they come back up, and they're recorded on what's called a geophone. So that's the acquisition part of it. And that's actually not my expertise at all. That takes a very specialized skill set to go out and do that. Once those guys collect the data in the geophones and they have it stored on hard drives and the whole kit and caboodle, they go to a processing shop. And those guys, once again, you have guys that are very talented in designing the survey correctly. And you have guys that are very good at processing the data correctly. I'm an interpreter. I'm the guy who looks at that and helps integrate all the wells and everything like that. Once the processors get it, they take it and they do all their work to make the image pretty like that. That's what they do is they take the very raw data and make it look to where you can interpret it and get an idea of what does the bowl look like down there. And then it's
kind of like a spreadsheet and just making it like pretty with like a better font.
Yeah,
colors.
it is. It's like taking a spreadsheet and making it into a picture. You know, when you take a picture on your phone.
Like an infographic.
Yeah.
Right.
When you take a picture on the phone, it's just a bunch of numbers in a spreadsheet, but it takes coloring it and doing all that stuff and putting it together that really makes a nice photo. And then once the photo gets there, you know, you're on your phone, you can do whatever you want with it. You can put a sticker on it or grab it or whatever. You know, guys like me, what we do is we're good at taking that data and helping oil and gas companies really figure out what's down there. You know, that's just a bowl. Is the bowl made out of granite or is it made out of clay?
And you can tell that from the waves.
Yeah, but I won't tell you unless they pay me. So, but no.
So like each like pattern,
yeah.
You can say like, oh, that is where there's some oil. That's where there is some other.
Yeah, there's certain rocks and certain fluids have a certain acoustic signature to them. So one way that I've described this to people is that if Jacob went into another room right now and took a fork and hit it on a wine glass, I guarantee you know what that is. And you don't have to see the rock or the wine glass. You don't. You just know what a wine glass sounds like. It's got that very distinct ping noise to it, right? But you could walk in the room and it's a whiskey glass. You know it's made out of glass, but you kind of go, that's probably wine glass. You walk in there and it might be a little bit different of a glass. So when I work for companies and they say, well, what do you think is down there? Might be let's say they're working on some kind of bowl and they say, what do you think the bowl's made out of? Well, there's multiple rocks that do sound like the same thing, but I can tell you with pretty good certainty what it's not. I know that wine glass isn't made out of concrete. Concrete doesn't sound like that. Well, most concrete doesn't sound like that. But I know that a wine glass or a martini glass or a whiskey glass sounds like that. And then from there, you start slicing it up more and more, and you get to a point where this is what I think it is. Understanding the regional geology is also super important. You can get an idea that, you know, if you go up to the north side of America in Canada as opposed to, I don't know, somewhere different, context of the geology is also super important. You know, there's certain areas where there's just going to be certain types of rock. So, but all that plays together into figuring out what's down there.
Do you know this guy's an expert because of the analogies he's just
I know.
spitting out?
It's so good. I love analogies.
So good. He's got improv hat bowls. He's got the
bowls.
glass. Like, I love it. Everyone take note. This is exactly what 101 is meant for.
Make sure that they know the team that I'm a fan of.
Represent. Represent. Well, okay, so your 2D is basically you get a bunch of slices and then that's your 3D. Like, it's like saying like 24 pictures equals a second of video, right? It's almost exactly that.
Actually, I haven't really thought about it that way, but that's right. It's like
stop motion, right?
That's a good analogy.
There
That's better than mine was. Yeah, like 2D seismic data is like a photo, and then when you shoot 3D, it's like a video.
Right.
They actually do have seismic now where they're shooting it, and they don't do this too much onshore, but they definitely do it more offshore. Well, they'll shoot a seismic survey like every 3 months. And so you get to see, probably one of the coolest things I saw is they shot, actually it's becoming pretty common now, is when they pump CO2 in the ground, that fluid is moving in time. So they'll shoot a survey at one point and then they'll come back and shoot one like 3 months down the road. And you can see where that's moving in the subsurface every like 3 months, which is really neat. Most of the time companies don't do that, cost money, but like with everything else, if it's helping you make better decisions down the road, the company's going to pay for it, but you got to make sure you can prove that value and prove the case for it.
Do they market that as 4D seismic?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
They call 4D/2 time-lapse seismic is what they call that for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's a great buzzword, but it makes sense, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Time-lapse is a little bit sexier than 4D, but I don't sell it necessarily like that.
Yeah. So you mentioned these hard drives, storing the data.
Yeah.
So like, what does this data look like? What are like maybe some of these file names? Like, is it just, I mean, it's all ones and zeros, but like,
yeah,
what does it kind of look like? And like, what literal file sizes are we talking about? Like, what does a picture of the seismic look? What does a 3D project look like? How big are these files?
They're massive. They're huge. So we're talking most data sets that I deal with are terabytes of files. So I always carry a terabyte hard drive with me, no matter what. Anywhere I go, I have a terabyte. Actually, I think it's 3 terabytes that I have now. And the reason I do is if there's ever a chance that I'm with someone and they have that data and they're willing to let me have some of it, I'm going to have that with me.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to not pass up that opportunity. But they're huge. So these data sets, and that's just after it's processed. When they're initially getting the data, it's even bigger.
Yeah, the raw data.
Yeah, they filter out the noise, they filter out stuff that doesn't work, but those data sets are huge. They're probably getting into the tens, hundreds of terabytes type of data storage. It is massive how big these data sets are. And they're not getting smaller. If anything, they're getting bigger. The surveys are getting tighter, they're getting larger, they're collecting deeper all the time. So it's huge. It's terabytes and terabytes of data. Yeah. You certainly cannot put it on a flash drive. Maybe the old data you can, but all the new stuff, certainly not.
If we go back to you talking about the like glass analogy and stuff like that, like when you're interpreting the data, like you're not actually listening to something, you're like looking at waves, like visualization. Like what are you actually looking at where you're telling the difference? Or are you actually listening to something?
No. Oh, yeah. I've actually had to explain that to someone before. When you're looking at seismic, because you look at it as like, this is sound. It's not like you're listening to music. You're taking the music and processing it to where you can, it's like lyrics. You're taking the processing and like looking at it. So those sound waves, you're taking, well, they're seismic waves, different. Seismic waves that's what actually travels through rock. That's kind of what it's designated as. It's a mechanical wave. Mechanical wave is anything that travels through media. Light waves and X-rays don't need water, rock, or anything to travel to. Mechanical waves do. Anywho, seismic waves. I'm sorry. What was your question again?
Like
I got off track.
Like I'm picturing you either listening to something or like looking at what looks like waveforms.
Right.
But what are you actually looking at?
Well, correct. We aren't actually looking at, like, of course, that picture. We're not really interpreters are not listening to the data. Now, the guys that do, well, actually, no one listens to the data. The geophones record the waves, and then the processing guys just take the data and make a picture out of it. So, correct. When we're looking at that data, we're not listening to it. The only person that's listening are the geophones. The geophones listen to the data, and then we take that, process it, make a picture out of it. So no, you're not there. You're not like in a sound room trying to listen to anything. You're kind of just interpreting what the sound wave looks like. But it certainly doesn't look like a waveform or an oscillator machine or something like that. It always, the data for the work that I do, the data always comes looking like the image that you showed.
Are the charts colorful? Or are they all black and white? Do your eyeballs hurt?
Depends on the client. Color bars are extremely important, but they need to be taken with great care, because the color bar can help convey information very well, but it can also help steer someone away from what they really need to know. I would say nowadays, for the most part, most people do not look at seismic data in black and white. They usually color it. That data is usually colored like red and blue, or it might be blue and red. Some people still look at it in black and white because that's what they're used to. But for the most part, I use colors quite a bit because it helps convey the information better. A lot of times you're speaking with people that are in upper management, or you're speaking to people that haven't dealt with seismic data a lot. So color bars help convey information better, but it can also help push them away from it. So you have to be very careful with the color bars. There's chapters in books that talk about color bars with seismic data. So it's pretty important, but you can't let it get away from you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's the advancement in technology, that whatever tools y'all use that help like read all this. And I feel like there's the equivalent of using like cheaper tech with like not so accurate results. So like, for example, shooting 480p on like a camera from 2000, like a camcorder, compared to like a 8K cinema camera. And so like, I feel like there's companies that choose somewhere in that range of tools.
Yeah.
To use that analogy basically. So I'm assuming like the most advanced stuff like bakes into color somehow and is like smart tech. I don't know. Like, is that kind of what you see?
Yeah. It just depends on how much you want to pay the tamer to contain the lion. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways I've worked on projects with paper seismic, and I'm not kidding. I've literally taken a picture with it on my phone. I went to Office Depot, got it printed out. It was terrible resolution. That's all I had. But I interpreted it and sent it to the person. I said, I think this is what's happening down there. And I have literally gotten jobs like that before. So whatever the client needs for a product at the end of the day, you got to do what you absolutely can to provide that. Anywho, back to your comment, there are programs that are quite cheap. You can do it as many ways as you want. You can take a picture with your phone, and go get it printed out and color it with colored pencils, which has tons of value in it. I've done that multiple times. Or you can pay for a program to interpret it, and they're not cheap. Some of these programs are very well north of $20,000 per year. They're very expensive. So when you work with clients, it's great that sometimes they provide it, sometimes they don't. And you just have to make that owner you have to make that decision as a business owner. Are you willing to take that client on and pay for that to do the work? But for the most part, most programs are not cheap to interpret seismic data. They are costly, they cost money, and they are very complicated. They take years to get good at. My program that I'm very good with right now is a program called Kingdom. And it's kind of an industry standard program, but it's taken me years to get good at. It takes a long time to learn those programs to deal with that type of data. So does that answer your question?
Kinda.
Yeah.
This is such a fascinating industry. It's very easy to understand, but also incredibly in the weeds. And I don't even stand a chance.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't say that. You guys have your value doing what you guys are doing.
Right.
I don't know how to do this. I was just learning about SEOs the other day. I have no idea what that is. I just learned that term like literally a week ago. I'm not kidding. I was like, what is that? And like, well, how are people finding you? And I went, I don't know.
That's the point
Word of mouth, but they're like, there's better ways to do it. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are just as good as what you're doing as I am. It might not seem that way because you guys work in oil and gas directly, but everyone's got their own value. It's just in a different flavor.
Yeah. I'll leave the seismic work to you then.
Yeah.
I guess. So another dumb question is, you're going down there shooting to find oil and gas, but you're obviously, the waves are hitting all kinds of shit. So like you're seeing like gold, dinosaur bones, like how crazy what do you see? What have you heard? What have you seen yourself? Anything crazy like that?
Never see dinosaur bones. Be a big ass dinosaur if you ever saw a bone. Nonetheless, a dinosaur. They're not crawling around down there anymore. They were a long time ago, but they got
I feel like
they got
there
killed by a giant.
recently, there's been some found in Midland.
Dinosaur bones on the surface.
Fossils.
What? Well, you can. I'll put it this way: you definitely cannot see fossils with seismic data. That's for damn sure. But it's all a resolution problem. If we had better resolution, we probably could, but that'll never happen. But no, when we're down there looking, your question was about looking for certain fossils or features, or
it'd be other like rare earth minerals. You could finding them on purpose, on accident. I don't know, like
I was saying earlier, seismic data is a Swiss Army knife. You can use it to do multiple. I mean, you can use for finding oil and gas, finding lithium, finding gold. You can use it for trying to figure out certain things in the soil and the subsurface, for putting buildings on the ground. It can be used for tons of industries, tons of reasons. It just depends on what is it that you're really trying to do down there, and is it worth paying for? Most people do not call me to find stuff like that in the ground. However, there are geophysicists that get paid out there to do stuff like GPR. I'm sure you guys have heard of GPR before.
Never.
So GPR, it's like a lawnmower, and they just push it on the ground, and it's got extremely high resolution. You can find pipes that big, like 6 feet deep. That big, you can find.
Is it
them.
the same concept? It's seismic.
Is it going
Yeah, it's the exact same concept.
Okay.
The problem the main reason we can't see that stuff down deep is we get noise. The earth is a great filter, so it attenuates, it kills the energy going into the ground. So we lose resolution that way. You're looking at stuff that's 10,000 feet deep. It's only going to be such great resolution.
It's so crazy.
Yeah. I would have, there would be a lot more value in seismic data if we could see pipes down there, but it's always a resolution problem with seismic data. You're trying to find your best, typical resolution I work with is stuff that's 75 feet. That's your resolution. That's at least to see the top and bottom of something. Detectability and resolution, that's a whole conversation we could get into. Probably not on this podcast. But yeah, I mean, when you're looking for certain rocks down there, they, like I was saying earlier, they sound like certain things. And it only takes someone that's really looked at a lot of data to really know what they look like down there. Whether it's you're looking for limestone, sandstones, lithium clays holding lithium, fractured rock holding geothermal water, whatever it is. Back to your question, seismic data can help you see all of that. It just hopefully it's worth paying for the company to see what they're trying to see down there. And sometimes it's not. There are plenty of companies that have worked without seismic data have been successful. It just depends on the company and the resource.
Let's maybe compare it to coring or other like exploration industries, right? So coring, they kind of are like, let's not guess, let's literally drill until we certain parts of the earth. You're like seismic seems like a less messy way where you're just kind of scanning it. Like what else is out there when it comes to exploration? What's better? Are they both necessary? How does that work?
I think in terms of cost, it depends on the company too. It depends on the resource. So in oil and gas, the nice thing about oil and gas is it's typically a continuous fluid. If you find a reservoir that, to a degree, that thing is completely continuous, that fluid is down there. So there's well logs, when you drill a well, they have these tools, they have these measurement devices that you can figure out what's down there. They have when they drill a well, there's a hole in the ground and they stick what are called tools down there, and they'll send acoustic waves down there. They'll send radioactive material down there to help measure the rock better. But like in the lithium business, you cannot map lithium with seismic data. You can map the rocks that are more likely to have lithium, but you cannot book reserves, book resources, things like that on just seismic data. But it can help you really nail down the rock that has that resource. So back to your point when you're talking about coring, in the mining business, if you're looking for gold, silver, lithium, what have you, you do have to drill a lot. You do have to core a lot because you can't really see gold or see silver or see lithium with well logs. or seismic data. You know the rock that is more likely to have it in the geologic environments that might hold that. You know, you're probably not going to find a lot of oil in Hawaii. It's just not. It's not going to be there. You're not going to find certain types of resources in certain areas. That's geologic context. You just need to know generally where that stuff's at. For gold and silver and lithium, you do have to typically core because you have to be able to go measure that silver, that gold and whatnot directly from the rock and get a good idea of the, parts per million that are actually in that core. But it's a tough question to answer a lot of times because it really depends on the company. It depends on the resource. But seismic data is another tool to help de-risk what you're looking for. It's just, is that the tool that you want to pay for at the time? Sometimes companies would rather spend more money on coring as opposed to shooting seismic. Sometimes they don't. But the companies that do want to spend money on seismic, usually they give me a call and I help them make that decision.
All right, let's get back into oil and gas stuff, I guess. So like we always talk about how like wireline and coring and seismic is kind of like not needed as much as like the data's out there. And you don't need to update what's underground. It's been there for millions of years. I don't think anything's changed in a few decades or whatever.
Yeah.
How does that actually work? I mean, is seismic like kind of going away? It
depends on the project. Just like all my previous comments, really depends on the project. Seismic's never going to go away. And the reason it's not is because if you're in an area that's extremely data rich, true, you might not need it. If you're in an area that's not data rich or deeper, you're right, the rock has always been there. The rock's not going to, for the most part, the rock's not going to change down there. But, a lot of companies, back to oil and gas, like right now, great example, great example. A lot of the exploration right now, well, I wouldn't even say it's exploration. It's definitely development. The Barnett Shale, I'm sure you guys have heard that in the Permian. That rock is deeper. It's deeper. It's had a longer geologic history. There's less wells that have penetrated it. A lot of companies I've been working for has been that formation. And it's because there's less rock, there's less wells, there's less data that has ever drilled that rock. And sometimes you do need seismic data to fill in the gaps where those wells are. Generally, as you go deeper, it's more expensive. There's just there's less data. There's not more data as you go deeper, there's less. And sometimes you do need seismic data to fill the gaps. In a lot of cases, you need seismic data to fill the gaps. You might have a well that's drilled in one spot. I've worked projects where I've had a well, actually it was in the Permian Basin for the Barnett. I've had areas where companies were drilling wells where the next closest well for that formation is 5 miles away. And they're going to put a $50 million project together, and their closest well to drill those wells is 5 miles away. So a lot of companies will say, you know what? We're going to spend the money on the seismic data because we want to understand the risk before we drill those wells. And some companies, they don't do it. And sometimes it bites them and sometimes it doesn't. It's a decision whether the company wants to spend the money or not. But seismic data will never go away because anywhere where you don't have enough well data to decrease your risk, most companies will go to seismic data to help decrease that risk and make a better decision. It's just, when are they going to pull the trigger? You don't know. Generally, if companies are 5 miles away, they'll give us a call, but it just depends.
Okay, let's talk about offshore. You mentioned it multiple times. It kind of sounds like you have experience offshore.
Not really.
Oh, okay.
Very little.
Well, you know about it at least.
I do.
All right.
I do. I do know about offshore data and offshore geophysics to a degree, but I haven't worked directly in offshore much, and it is definitely a different environment. But in terms of your question earlier, like collecting it and everything, the only difference is you don't use a truck to go out there, obviously, but you use a ship. And the ship has, they have this machine that, I don't know exactly how the machine works, but they probably compress some kind of air or vice versa, and they let that go off in the ocean. And then that's your source. That's your energy that goes down in the subsurface.
Does that not interfere with stuff in the ocean?
They actually pay people to go out there and do surveys on marine and animal life to make sure they avoid that as much as possible.
Well, I just mean like also interfering with the sound waves.
yeah, this is getting a little bit outside my expertise, but I assume most of those animals they're on a far different frequency than seismic waves are. So I don't
like a dog whistle.
Yeah. It's going to beat me on analogies, but yes, it's like a dog whistle. I mean, we can't hear it, but they can. I think it's to a degree the same thing out there, that none of the noises out there really are, I'd say for the most part, they're either not going to cause a problem or we've gotten good enough processing them to where they're not an issue.
Okay.
We know how to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So
makes sense.
I haven't worked offshore too. I know plenty about the business. It's the projects offshore are a lot bigger and they're a lot larger in general. Like the wild thing is that I think there was a reservoir recently that BP found that was in South America. I think it literally covers, it's wild. It covers like the 610 loop. That's how big it is.
That's insane.
That's the reservoir. I don't know if that's really what holds oil and gas.
You're talking about Guyana?
No, well, maybe. I don't really know, but I read an article about it recently. Their reservoir is literally the size like the 610 loop or something like that. It's massive.
Yeah, all the majors are out there right now.
Whereas, something like that onshore, they're not really that common. You're not going to find East Texas oil field anytime soon. We've been surprised before.
Keep your eyes on Hawaii.
But yeah. So anywho, I don't know, other than that it's typically just bigger projects. In terms of interpreting it, it's about the same type of work. It's a lot more data. The data sets are not hundreds and thousands out there. It's like tens of thousands of square miles that you're looking at. So it's just bigger. It's just a lot bigger projects, more money, more risks, things like that.
So if there are these weird boats essentially like replicating sonar waves and to put it in some kind of way, that's just hitting the bottom of the ocean though. Like how is it going under the ocean floor?
So when it hits the ocean floor, you do lose some of the wave does travel along the ocean floor. Some of it does reflect off the ocean floor, but you do get some of the energy that keeps going. It keeps going through the rock, and then it'll hit some kind of boundary and come back up, and then it loses energy. You have some of the sound wave or the seismic wave. You have some of the wave that hits it and reflects back. Some of the wave keeps going, and then it'll hit the next layer and bounce back up, and it'll hit the next layer and bounce back up. And there's a whole bunch of these waves literally traveling everywhere, and they're recording it. But the processing guys they're pretty darn good at knowing what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
But it is
so
it's an expertise.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely it's a skill set to process that data. That's why you have interpretation geophysicists like me and you have processing geophysicists. It's definitely two very different skill sets, but they're both also very valuable.
So let's go back on land and talk about, you said 75 feet earlier. Like that's as deep as it sees basically?
No, 75 feet's this is generally speaking, and it depends on, everything's general and it depends. 75 feet is like your vertical resolution. So if you're looking at a limestone rock in the subsurface, you can see that formation, or you can resolve it is the correct term. You can resolve it if it's 75 foot thick. So if it's 70 feet thick, you can see the top and the bottom of it. Now, I want to make sure I make a comment on this podcast. There is a difference between resolution and detectability. It's one thing to see something. It's another thing to actually see the top and the bottom of it, resolving the full figure of it. Now, you're not going to see something that's like 5 to 15 feet generally. You can, but if you got to be a lot shallower and the properties of the rock got to be kind of perfect. But generally speaking, your resolution down there where people look for oil and gas, you're looking anywhere, 50 to 150 feet. But it depends on the quality of the data. It depends on how deep you are. It depends on a whole bunch of factors. But that's why we get paid to do what we do, is that we help companies figure that out of what they can expect down there. And sometimes you have to do the best you can to determine that. You can model it. You can do a whole bunch of things. But generally speaking, that's about the resolution you're getting. You're certainly not getting every 6 inches like you are with a well log, or literally every millimeter like you are with core data or something like that. That's the resolution that you're generally dealing with, though.
I mean, I was interested in the like technology of it all now. So
Oh yeah.
do you use AI or like is there any
All the
kind
time.
of what
Yeah.
do you what are you doing?
So anytime we can take AI to help us process or interpret it better, then great. I'm not worried. I'm not worried in the slightest about AI taking geophysics jobs or anything away. It's just going to help do our job way faster. I use AI constantly.
Yeah.
There's programs that are coming out with these AI tools that, Colton doesn't have to take 2 weeks to interpret an area now. I can do it in a week or half a week or a day. So the AI tools just help us do our job faster. It can never really replace us because it's every single time I've used tools, they always got some kind of noise that you got to fix. And there's just no replacement for someone giving their opinion and really doing the work. It's never going to ever really be that tight. In terms of where I think things are changing or the technology behind it, I'm excited for the cost to go down. So I think the AI is going to help decrease the cost of seismic data, which is going to be to die for. Onshore, seismic data is generally speaking, it's like $50 an acre, plus or minus $30. And I know that window is very big, but it depends on how much you buy and it depends on how new and old it is. If someone's going to buy the oldest data and buy 1,000 square miles of it, you're going to get a good price. But if you buy the most expensive and you want 10 square miles, you're going to pay that $80 an acre. So it depends on what you want to pay. I am most excited for the AI in terms of processing and interpretation to decrease the cost, because then more companies are going to buy the data, which gives us more work and helps us find more resources in the future. So while that AI is helping us automatically reprocess data, it's going to help us automatically map faults better, going to help us automatically find the bowls, whatever it is. It's going to help look for a resource faster, hopefully decrease cost of seismic data. That's really what I'm most excited about, because getting companies to get over that hurdle of buying seismic data is really tough. And you got to be really good at convincing them that the value is there to invest, because they've got tons of money to spend on drilling wells or paying people or whatever. And you've got to convince the case to buy that data. So if we can decrease that cost, make it available, that's really where I hope it comes in the future. And doing AI and utilizing as best we can is going to help us do that.
Yeah. And
So
I feel like AI is not even helping you like with the seismic, but like with the storage and organization of it all. I mean, which is kind of like what Collide does for oil and gas, at least with like using AI to help read through files and stuff. Because like you talking about terabytes of data,
Yeah,
you're the terabyte
kidding.
man. So like
yeah.
AI is helping you there too already.
Yeah, actually, as a matter of fact, seismic data can be hair pulling to load.
Not beard pulling though.
Yeah, right. But most of the seismic data nowadays is relatively easy to load. But in terms of finding data and even loading it, I'm sure AI in programs that companies are building is just going to help you load it better. It's tough to load. It's also tough to find. But even, like you said, I think in terms of storing it, in terms of finding it, in terms of loading it, interpreting it, processing it, the whole kit and caboodle, AI is going to help us do it just faster and better. I don't think it'll ever replace it. It's just they need someone to, like I said earlier, they need someone to tame the beast. It's just you're going to be able to tame the beast a little bit faster. So I agree with you. The more and more AI that we can get built into programs and processes, the faster this stuff can go.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Take us over, robot overlords.
I hope not. It won't.
All right, I'm gonna wrap it up with some vocabulary.
Okay.
We read, you got a bunch of words off of, what was it, his consulting company?
Yeah, on your LinkedIn page.
And let's see if we learned anything. The first one already looks promising. So I'm gonna just be like, what is this? And then you're really good at your analogies and your responses. So you should have that expertise to wrap it up in a good 30 seconds to a minute.
Pop quiz time.
No,
Yes.
I don't need any essays off of this. All right, I'm gonna just say it. What is time depth interpretations when it comes to seismic?
Right. So this is something we didn't get into, but that picture that you looked at, seismic is recorded in time. It's not depth. So when they're recording data, it is a wave that's traveling through the ground. But when it's traveling, it's going to take 1 second or half a second to bounce off a rock and come back up. So it is recorded in time. That's what it is. Now you can do a lot of stuff with time data, but you can't drill you can't drill a well in time. You can't go out to someone and say, well, it's about 1 second deep. They're going to be like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of times we get paid to take that data that's recorded in time and convert it to depth. So companies can get a better idea on what it costs to get down there. And actually a big reason we do depth too is just get the idea of how much oil and gas is down there. You can get a spatial idea of how big the reservoir is, but a lot of times they want to know the thickness of it or some other parameter. And the only way to do that is to get your seismic data that's recorded in time and converting it into depth. And a big part of my job is to get it into depth correctly. That can be very simple and it can be extremely complicated. So there you go.
All right. Pass that one for one. What about fault interpretations? Obviously, when you think underground, you think like faults, earthquakes, stuff like that. Is it kind of like that?
Yeah. So I guess this will be another picture that you put up. One of the famous outcrops, at least in Nevada, is the 1954 fault in Dixie Valley. And when it happened, literally the entire basin. So you're looking from a mountain range to a mountain range. The entire basin, at least one side of it, literally collapsed about 6 or 7 feet. And so when you walk up to it, it's like this. It's literally just a wall. And that whole side of it just fell. And that Dixie Valley fault, in terms of what you're asking for, we are looking for those all over in seismic data. And it depends on the project. A lot of times in conventional type reservoirs, the old school stuff, wildcatting, which they still do now, plenty of it, those faults will trap oil and gas. And it's very common in the Gulf Coast that is the trapping mechanism to where oil and gas is not trying to get out of the ground anymore. It's just stuck there. With unconventionals, a lot of the fault interpretation is when you drill a well and they want to avoid it for geohazard reasons. So when you drill a horizontal well, you want to stay in the rock that has the oil in it or the gas in it or both. If you drill through a fault that's, I literally made a PowerPoint this week of a fault that we mapped that was 500 feet. So it's literally, if the rock's right here, right over there, it's 500 feet deeper. That is a huge risk for a company. Actually, there's no company that would probably drill a horizontal well if the next side of it was 500 feet deep. But if it's 30 feet deep, they could probably get by it. Or 30 foot of offset, whatever you'd like to call it. So in terms of fault interpretation, there's your answer. And at least I'm not showing you the analogy, but when you see that picture, you'll know it.
I like showing pictures on the podcast. That's all.
Me too.
The visual learners.
Helpful.
You got to think about them. All right, let's do a few more that sound interesting. Velocity modeling.
Ooh. Velocity
Keep it
modeling.
short. You promised.
Yeah.
He didn't promise, but it's so funny. Like you literally have a list of all these like words put together. I'm like, I don't know what any of this is.
Because it's an output, right? Is it like basically a chart you're providing them, or like what is?
Sure. It is. I mean, you can definitely put it in a chart, but how can I describe velocity modeling very simply? It is the pathway. It is the product in which you need to provide to get the data from time into depth. That is what it is. To describe it in like layman's terms, every rock has a speed to it. So if you send a sound wave through it, every rock has, like limestone is pretty darn fast. Like a wave can travel through limestone at a certain speed. A wave travels through water at a certain speed. A wave travels through lava rock at a certain speed. Generally speaking, and this is not exactly how it works, but you have to model all of that to get the data in one measurement domain to the other. So if you're going from feet per second to meters per second, you got to multiply it by something to make it into the other measurement. Your velocity model is like your pathway to go from time to depth with seismic data.
That's pretty good. Pretty good.
That was a tough one.
That's pretty understandable. All right, I'm going to hit you with one more.
Okay.
Post-stack inversion. That'll be our last one.
Actually, I think that one's easier than velocity modeling, to be honest. That image that you had up earlier, that is reflection data, is the term. You're looking at the top I got to step back about one second from that. Post-hoc seismic inversion, in the simplest form I can describe it, is you are looking at the rock, you are looking at the internal properties of the rock and not necessarily the top and the bottom of it. So that data that you looked at there, if you kind of get into a little bit more, you're seeing the top of your guys' building and the bottom of your building, but you're not seeing the people that work at Collide in the middle. That is what inversion is you are looking at what is the inside of the rock, what is the porosity, what is the gas, what's inside of that rock. And I will keep it at that to not get any deeper.
That was really good. It's a good analogy.
I'll sum up this whole podcast with an analogy. Seismic is like that picture of Homer Simpson where he's skinny, but he has all the clothespins holding his fat behind him.
Wait, I've never seen this.
It's so easy to describe seismic in like a blanket term, and you're like, boom, there it is. But behind the scenes, it's also insanely in depth and crazy. And seismic is like, okay, yeah, that's Homer skinny, I get it.
That.
And then it's like post-stack inversion. It's like, no.
we certainly try to clean it up a lot better than Homer Simpson's back fat, but that's what color bar's for.
Yeah, exactly.
So good analogy. Gross analogy, but good analogy.
Right?
Yeah. All right, Colton.
Thanks,
Thank you for
guys.
coming
Really
on.
appreciate
Thank you.
it. A lot of fun.